Hello and welcome to the LearnStorm Growth Mindset Livestream. I'm Eric, I'm one of the LearnStorm program leads, and I'm so excited to welcome all of you to the Khan Academy offices here in California. Today's livestream will run for about 45 minutes and will be split into 3 parts. And so up first, we'll cover what is LearnStorm. Next, we'll go really deep and detailed into our growth mindset activities. And finally, we'll answer as many of your questions as we can and wrap things up. A few tips to help you get the most out of this live stream are, one, if you have any questions as we're going through today, just type in the comments along the right side of YouTube, and we have a moderator who's reviewing all of your comments and will be pulling in those questions for us. Then to help ensure that you can see everything that we're sharing on the live stream, I recommend that you maximize the screen because we will be walking through the growth mindset activities in detail. You'll see text and some cool graphics, and so best to see that in full screen in all its glory. And then if you can't stay for the entire live stream, don't worry. This whole live stream will be recorded, and we'll share the recording out to all of you later this week. I also have 2 amazing guests with me today that I'll introduce in just a minute. But up first, let me just introduce LearnStorm and share a little bit about that. So what is LearnStorm? So LearnStorm, if you haven't read up or haven't heard much about it yet, is a free 6-week back-to-school challenge that for this year we're launching for the first time across the country. And so students and teachers anywhere in the U.S. can sign up and participate thanks to AT&T, who is our a supporter of LearnStorm that's really helped bring it and make it accessible to anyone in the US. So huge shout out to them. But like I mentioned, it's a 6-week back-to-school challenge that's designed to help your students, 1, build the skills they need this back to school for your class, for your subject, and 2, to strengthen the mindsets that they need, not just for this school year, but for the rest of their learning career and into adulthood. And so to look at a few more details about how LearnStorm works and what you and your teachers will be doing, let's flip over to the LearnStorm2017.org website and take a look there. So this website is really the home for any and everything LearnStorm related. So you can sign up from here, you can take a look at the rules, the prizes, and for today I'm going to click over into the resources, and here you'll see a nice video from our founder Sal Khan that you can watch, but I'll zoom in for now on how LearnStorm works. And so there are 4 steps in participating in LearnStorm. First, you'll sign up for a Khan Academy account, create your class, and then enroll that class in LearnStorm. We've really tried to streamline the process so it takes as few clicks as possible. You'll then assign practice and growth mindset activities on Khan Academy. And there are 2 things to highlight here. One is our assignments feature that we've just released at Back to School to make it easy to assign any video, exercise, or article on any subject on Khan Academy. So not just math, but science and history and grammar and economics can all be assigned to your students. Once your students see those assignments, it'll show up right on their homepage with a due date. They'll practice, work through that to strengthen their skills and fill in those gaps that they inevitably have over the summer. They'll then complete growth mindset activities that we'll go into much more detail on in just a sec. And then you'll celebrate success with them with the LearnStorm tracker. And so each class has a tracker with 6 levels. And to complete each level, your students will just submit assignments. And you'll be able to see how many assignments your class has completed. And if you've unlocked the level 1 prize, level 2, so on and so forth. And levels 1 through 5 will get you digital badges and energy points. And the level 6 prize will get you a real-life prize box that has pencils, stickers, and other school supplies. And so lots of exciting things, but enough of me talking. I want to bring in now our 2 guests who will be sharing their expertise on the growth mindset. And so first we have Mia, my colleague, who is the other LearnStorm program lead, who has worked on LearnStorm for the past 3 years, in fact, and has led almost all of the development of these growth mindset activities, has listened to teacher feedback, has improved them year after year. We also have Asai, who is an elementary school teacher in Santa Cruz, California. He actually drove up just this afternoon after school to join us, so extra shout out to him for battling traffic and making it up to us. And he's used LearnStorm and the growth mindset activities in the past, and so we'll be bringing that teacher perspective. So to start out, Mia, can you share just a little bit about what is a growth mindset? So start us off on the same page here.
Sure, thanks, Eric. So excited to share. And for many of the folks listening, growth mindset might not be a new term. It's been floating around in the education sphere for several years now. But just in case it is a new term, or if you read an article about it a long time ago and you're a little fuzzy, I want to share kind of a working definition that we're using here at Khan Academy and in LearnStorm. So let's go ahead and flip to that definition now. The growth mindset is the belief that you can improve your abilities by practicing and learning from your mistakes. And really, it's a perception that your intelligence or that your skills can change and be developed over time. Again, like the definition says, through practice and learning from mistakes. And people understand the growth mindset sometimes in contrast to the opposite mindset that we might be more familiar with, unfortunately, which is called the fixed mindset. And we all are familiar with this, perhaps. We've heard it before, maybe in our own self-talk, or we've said it out loud, or we've heard friends or parents or family members say something like, I'm just not a math person, or I'll never be a writer, or maybe I'm never going to be good at chemistry. And it's this self-talk and this feeling that you're born with an innate set of abilities or a fixed amount of intelligence, and that you can't really do much to change that, either through practicing or from learning from your mistakes. And really, all of the research points to the fact that you can, in fact, change your abilities. You can grow your intelligence, or as some people like to say, grow your brain. And that perception and that attitude towards learning is what the growth mindset is all about. And so for teachers, what we're excited to share is that done successfully, implementing the growth mindset in your classroom can really help your students achieve more during this, what we know can be a busy and hectic back to school time, as students are remembering what they may have forgotten over the summer and reviewing that, or as you dive into new concepts right at back to school. And a couple of things that we want to focus on as we talk more about the growth mindset today. And so the first one is the learning process. And so we can flip to the next slide that shows this brain with a puzzle piece missing and some steps that are part of the learning process that we want to encourage and that people with a growth mindset tend to embrace. And you'll notice there are a couple steps here. There's no one step to the growth mindset, and you're not going to develop it all at once or have it in every scenario. But these are a couple of good things to keep in mind, and as teachers, what we want to encourage you to coach students through in the classroom with the growth mindset activities and beyond. So first step is practice. You need to opt into doing that homework assignment, taking that challenging step to learn something new or to review something that you might have forgotten. Then acknowledge that you're going to make some mistakes. This is a normal part of the learning process, and we want to kind of transform our view of mistakes into the view of them as opportunities. But they only really become opportunities if you take the next and very important step of reflecting. And so when we reflect on our mistakes, we pause and we think, why did I make that mistake? Did I make it because I was going too fast? Because I don't understand a key concept? What was really at the root of that mistake that I made? And in some cases, students might be able to answer that question on their own and realize, oh, yeah, I was just going too fast. In other cases, they'll realize, no, I need to have a friend or my teacher or a parent help me review that concept. And so seeking help is another step in the process, followed up with trying again. And this is where the progress is made. This is where you do similar problems and you don't make those mistakes. And that's when learning and improvement is happening. And so with the growth mindset, you're taking the attitude that you can improve and change your abilities. You're adopting learning strategies to actually help you overcome obstacles and to learn from your mistakes. And then, you're doing this over and over and over again over the course of your learning career. And in some moments, it's easier than others. So if we skip to the next slide, you can see that there are still going to be these moments when learning is challenging. And that's normal too. And there's a couple things about the growth mindset that I want to address here, which is that, first off, effort alone is not enough. You know that there are many, many steps in that learning process that I just outlined. And one mistake that we can make with the growth mindset is just to say, keep trying, don't give up, keep working. And when you're making mistakes or when you're confused or frustrated, kind of banging your head against the wall and continuing to try and try and try is not always the right strategy or the right approach. And it can lead to people turning away from a growth mindset and really deepening the fixed mindset feeling that they might have. And then the last point that I'll make on the growth mindset before we talk more about it and the activities themselves is that we all do have mixed mindsets at the end of the day. And sometimes you're going to react naturally with your growth mindset. Yeah. And other times when you make a mistake or you come across something that's really challenging, your fixed mindset might show up. And what I want to let teachers know is that this is a great moment to let students know it's going to happen. And it doesn't mean that you're bad or that you have a fixed mindset forever and you can't get rid of it. It just means that that thing is especially challenging for you and that you need to lean back on the strategies that you've learned in LearnStorm and on that growth mindset that you've been developing over time to continue making progress in your learning journey.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much for getting us started on the same page, and in particular for calling out the misperception around the growth mindset of, if you just keep trying again and again and again, and around the mixed mindset as well, and definitely two things that you and I can empathize with, and I'm sure that so many teachers and students around the country can empathize with as well. And so with that as a starting point, Isai, can you share a bit of your experience? I mean, you've taught hundreds of students over your teaching career, and I'm wondering how have you seen the growth mindset be important to students in the classroom? Why does it matter?
Yeah, using it at the beginning of the year has been key, and we were talking about this earlier. It really creates the dialogue that creates safety in the learning environment. And when kids feel safe to make mistakes, they're more likely to learn. And so I showed them the video with the image of the neurons firing, and we showed the one where there was an animal in a not as stimulating environment and the other one that's in a very stimulating environment, and we talked about that. And I think giving kids the evidence and the research is really important, because specifically in math, what I always ask them is, well, great, you got that. How can you prove it? And so we talk about proofs. And so I think giving kids that information and that research is key to clearing the space and making it safe for them to learn. And it really has changed the dynamic as how they approach any kind of work, but we focus a lot and we talk a lot about it in math. And then the other is that it really gives them the language for their productive struggle. And so when we're doing math, it's a productive struggle. We're getting somewhere, and it's messy. And today I was just thinking about this. How many of you got confused? How many of you were frustrated? How many of you made mistakes? And the beauty of that is that it really allows them to manage their emotions, because failing is challenging. I don't like it, and it's something that we need to learn to manage. And so that's really key. And then the other thing is that I think, as all teachers do, when we are teaching a student, we know that we are looking into a human's life. And so lifelong learners are more likely to be successful because they have this positivity about them. And if they don't succeed, then they'll tinker and see if they can get unconfused or unfrustrated and be successful. And to me, I think that's the ultimate goal of the educator, is to inspire students, or to inspire that person to be the best that they can be. So I think that, to me, is what growth mindset has brought to me, and the activities. I'm so glad you have the videos, because that's really where I start to do that work and make it practical for them. So I do word sorts that we'll show at open house, or back to school night, excuse me. And then the other is the brain, and then we color it and we make the connections to our learning. So those are practical things that I think teachers can do now, and the most important is that safety, and then the language frames to talk to your students through that productive struggle.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, especially this back to school. And I think a lot of students come back, and it can be a new opportunity. And in these first few weeks, if you can make it safe and show that, hey, this year might be a little bit different if you've had struggles in the past, or this is a new opportunity to continue growing and learning. So really great to hear some of that. So we've talked about the growth mindset activities, but I think a lot of teachers out there want to see the growth mindset activities.
Yeah.
So let's flip over into the Khan Academy, and Mia, can you take us through what these things look like?
Great. So the growth mindset activities are live now. We know LearnStorm kicks off on September 12th, but teachers can go on and actually preview all of the activities in full now. And what you can see on the screen here are the 6 growth mindset activities that we have. And then this last category, which is growth mindset teacher resources. And I'll just call your attention here briefly. There's a whole overview of the activities provided here, along with links to additional resources that teachers can use alongside the activities, including full lesson plans with time estimates and suggestions and questions student might ask and responses that you can use. So really fantastic lesson plans in there. And in addition to that, if you would like to run the activities in class time with your students, there's some supplementary slideshows that you can use to do that in your class. So definitely worth browsing around through this page. But for now, what I want to do is dive into the first activity here, which is the truth about your brain. And in the activities, we start with the science behind the growth mindset. And we've worked in collaboration with PERTS, which is a research group based out of Stanford University, to create these activities. We started working with them in 2015, and we've been working with them all through to refine and develop these activities, both with input from their team and also input and feedback that we've gotten from teachers over the years. So really excited to unveil kind of the new activities for LearnStorm 2017. And each activity is structured so that you can assign it. So I'll just go to the full lesson page here, and you will be able to, from your coach tools, assign this activity. You can see even the shortcut here to assign it through Google Classroom. And so once that assignment is made, it will show up for your students, and they'll click in to see an article. Each of the activities is fully contained within one article on Khan Academy. And there's content, there will always be text and potentially some supporting videos. Throughout, you'll have opportunities to pause and reflect, to think through and really apply these concepts to your particular scenario. And then more prompts throughout, really kind of unveiling how the brain works and how you can think about it as you learn. And then at the bottom of each activity, you'll see a placeholder card for now, but starting September 12th, students will be able to submit text responses and also any creative responses that they make. So drawings or videos, they'll be able to submit them here to share their reflections and really cement these learning strategies and concepts so that they can refer back to them later. And so right now, not quite live yet, but fully available for teachers to browse through and get a look at. And the activities, again, there are 6 of them. You can choose to do them 1 per week over the 6 weeks of LearnStorm, or however works with your class schedule and in your particular classroom environment. You can assign them as homework for students to do either at home or at an after-school program or library, or you can choose to do them in class in small group rotations or as a whole class if you have the technology to enable that. And so they're flexible, they're designed to really work with teachers and to be implemented how they think best. This year's activities were developed with support from GM. Really grateful for their support, making this new and improved version of them possible.
Awesome, yeah. These look really, really comprehensive, and I think we'll come back to these again, but I'm guessing some teachers out there are seeing this thinking, okay, that looks pretty cool, but what does this actually look like in the classroom? And so how long does this take, and what does that look like? And so Isai, can you share a bit about, you've run these activities before in your class, and can you share a little bit about what that was like, what you've done, and what the experience or tips you might have for other teachers?
Yeah, I use each activity for about 20 minutes. It's, I think, really good to start off on a Monday and set the tone as to that's what we're working on. could be part of your classroom agreements. And the other thing that I mentioned earlier was the word phrases. And so we take a lot of those snippets or the videos and the way they talk about it. And so we use a lot, your brain is a muscle, we have to use it, we have to practice, we have to train. I use that a lot, that word train or coach. I'm coaching you right now. Your brain is growing, so I'm coaching, through this struggle. And again, it's like that working language that's really key to setting that foundation. The other is making it fun. Definitely the art activities. Like I took the video where it shows that you can learn anything. It's just the intro, like a trailer, and it has a brain and kids are coloring. And so I definitely do that and create some dots. And I ask them, I give them a limit, and then they do 3 dots per se, anywhere they want, and then we use the straight edge to create those connections, and we share how each brain is different because we all color it different. We put the dots differently, and we talk a lot about appreciating different perspectives. And so it gives us that working knowledge on how to speak about struggle, and it builds community also because we acknowledge that all our brains are different and we learn differently in different ways and in different abilities. We get to that place at different times. And then the other that kind of just came out of the video, watching it, was the John Legend video, and where he's talking about his productive struggle to try to get signed on a record label for about 6 years. And I just stopped the video and said, okay, let's do some math. And so how long did John Legend fail? And so they're like, what? It's like, well, yeah, like he couldn't get a record label. And so we did 6 years, and we broke it down by days. And kids were just really excited doing this real world problem that I didn't know the answer to. And they got really excited. And so then I was like, do you want to do minutes? And they're like, yeah. And so we did minutes. And I think we got to seconds. And it was an outrageous number. And we did that together, and it really built community. And then I was just like, do you want to see his house? And they were like, yeah. And so we showed us up. And it just creates this very clear picture of explicit struggle, of how people struggle and they get to a certain point that they want in their life. And we all hope to have that type of success. But I think, especially working for 3rd graders, we do adapt these so that it's accessible and for them to be able to understand and see what growth mindset is. So those are the things that I try to implement, and it goes well with the math practice standards that I know a lot of schools and a lot of teachers are using. And it goes math practice standard 1, which is perseverance, and we talk about that struggle to understand. So those are the little things that we do and that I do in the classroom that I think take about 20 minutes, and you can split it up.
Yeah, that's really, really great to hear. And I think, Isaiah, you had mentioned you've used these activities before and with different setups. And so what would you say? I think, we've gotten one question from viewers from one of our teachers who says, I don't have that many computers in my classroom. How do I make these activities work if I want all of my students to participate? What would you, what advice would you have about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the things that I struggled with, which I started with 5 desktop computers and I couldn't move them because they were still had to be plugged into the Ethernet cables. You can do different things. You can do centers. You can do kind of a spiral review. It's one of those things where it could be also when you're done, you can do this. And the other is that I give access also before school and during lunch for students that may get there early and may not have access to computer at home. Those are the things that I do. I know that teachers do a lot, so I want to appreciate that you are here. And the other is I look for grants and try to get the computers there. But when you have a few, then I would definitely do a rotation as part of one of those rotations, and where one group is with you, another is on Khan Academy going through these activities, practicing their growth mindset, and then maybe another would be an art or a math hands-on activity that's related to the activity that we're doing with Khan or just in part of your curriculum. And that's something that I was able to balance. Or also if you have at least half, then you can do a lot of research on the flipped classroom, and you can see how to best manage that for your type of students in class.
Got it. That's great. So it sounds like you found a way to integrate it. You definitely needed to get creative, and it's but you were able to find a way to integrate it into the classroom. Awesome. And just quick note to the teachers who are out there watching. If you have questions, we're definitely in the Q&A part of the live stream. If you have any questions, just add them to the comments, and we'll be answering as many of them as we can. And just add those in, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Another question we got from a teacher is, around what grade levels these activities are appropriate for. So, say you've used them in third grade and kind of adapted them so that they're understandable there. Mia, are they designed? How are they designed? And can they be used across grades?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the activities are designed to work across 3rd through 12th grade, which are the ages that are eligible for LearnStorm, and also across subjects. So we heard great examples from Isai about in 3rd grade and alongside math, but it's important, and it was important in the design of the activities, that they could be applied at any grade level. And so the reflections are designed to have students apply the concepts to their lives. And so whether they're in 3rd grade and they're struggling with math, or if they're an 11th grader struggling with writing, in all of the reflections, the idea is to personalize it back to your own experience as a learner and as a student, or to your own classroom context. And so that's an important piece. And the reflections lend themselves well to that. It's been amazing to see how people have taken the concepts and applied them differently, and the different goals that we see set, which is one of the activities that your students will do, is setting a goal. The different kind of creative ideas for overcoming obstacles, whether that's applied to math or applied to science. And I think it's something that's very unique about LearnStorm as a challenge, as a learning challenge, is that we're presenting skills that students need to practice now at back to school time, and new concepts that they need to learn. And as they are in real time encountering those new skills and struggling and making mistakes, they're also practicing developing their growth mindset at the same time. And so the strategies and the goals that they're setting can relate back to LearnStorm, or they could relate back to that class. And it's something that you can revisit with them over the course of LearnStorm and over the course of the school year.
Got it. Glad we've made it flexible. Another question we received is, and this one will be for you, Isai. So for teachers who are new to the growth mindset and are maybe just rolling it out for the first time in their classroom this back to school, they're wondering, what are some good phrases or ways you can respond to a student who is maybe coming from a fixed mindset place, and maybe they've just made a mistake and they are frustrated, confused, and don't feel like doing it again? And what are some of the things that have worked in your classroom?
Yeah, I was really glad that Khan Academy introduced this to me. And so part of it was learning it through the modules, and I think it's really important to look over them, because you'll find phrases or lines that jump out at you. And then the other part would be to make it about yourself. So we were talking about things that I do outside of school, and one is I referee. So I talk a lot about training and about coaching. And so I've used that language, which I think has given access, because I feel comfortable with it and I'm knowledgeable about that world and that vocabulary, and kids have been able to gain access through that. But if you're a baker, maybe that's something that you want to phrase, the bread hasn't risen, I don't know, things like that. Yeah. But I think being familiar with the research, the vocabulary from the modules is a good start if you've never read anything about it. And that's how I started. And then making it your own. What is it that you know that you can create a metaphor for them to understand simply? And I think that's the art of your teaching, and I think take it into who you are, and I would do that. The other is, I think, really the challenge of students that have come into your classroom and already are habitually, I'm not good at this, and I'll never be good at this. And I think it's building that rapport and finding activities in where it's the zone of proximal development. It's that +1. It's where, okay, this is where you are, and I'm going to get you here, just little step. And I think that's something that I've really worked hard at. I have one student in where they weren't unable to write. So we said, okay, let's start with pictures. And so that's where they were as a student. And so then now what we do is we record on a phone or on a computer sometimes, and then we write it out afterwards, and I scribe for her. And so that's an adaptation that you may have to do. And so it's meeting every student at their zone of proximal development and building that rapport. And again, it goes back to that safety. Like understanding that a mistake is much more valuable because it's a fingerprint of their thinking, and it's the ability for us to look into their brain and see, oh, okay, here's where you have this piece missing. Let me give that to you. So I really highlight and emphasize mistakes in my classroom for that reason. I mainly show and model students that have mistakes because then right then they can see, and other kids can see that they just learned. That is why mistakes are so important in this classroom, and that's what I try to emphasize to everyone. And it goes back to that community and making that student feel safe. And then you just keep working at it. Those are habits of mine that they've had since kinder, perhaps, maybe even from the home. And it's something that you work throughout the year for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering, you mentioned that some of these habits are coming in from kindergarten, first grade, from early on. And you mentioned showcasing mistakes and celebrating them. But how do you make it safe in your classroom, since I think the concept of struggle is or the word struggle is almost a bad word in a lot of students' vocabulary. So how do you make your classroom environment safe for that, or how do you showcase the mistakes in a way that where those students almost wear it as like a badge of honor? How does that work?
Yeah, again, I talk a lot in metaphors. I think it's really easy for kids to really understand, and I say to them, if I say to you, we can fly to the moon, are you surprised? They're like, no. But if you said that 100 years ago, nobody's going to believe you. So we go through this process of trying to achieve things that we may think now are impossible. And I talk to them a lot. It's like, when I grew up, there was no electric cars. Somebody had to design that. And so I try to find a way to create this. Again, it goes to that safety. And then from there, we create, repeat the question on.
Yeah, so just how do you make the mistakes okay in your classroom?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm having a tough time. Part of it is just really that safety, and it's hard because it's a lot of times every day is like new, and you go into the classroom and you find something that you latch onto. So today, for example, we were really struggling to show our work in math. And so what we did is I grabbed a student's work and I showed it, and I stopped the whole class, and we talked about how this person did what's called a number bond, and they decomposed by hundreds, tens, and ones. And then their mistake was that in their map, in their diagram, they put together tens and ones and hundreds and tens. And so this student counted tens twice. And so right in that moment, we talked about that. And part of it too is that I reward those things by showcasing them, by saying thank you. And then I'll be like, you know what, grab a sticker because I saw that you tried.
Yeah.
Rewards are a big part of it, and I think that's kind of how we work too. Sometimes we say, okay, it's time to get ice cream. So similar to that, I think that I do that a lot. And sorry for stumbling. I had to gauge the question. And those are the things that I start to do early on. I'm only in my 4th day of teaching, and I've used every strategy that I've talked about because it's gotten me a lot of returns. The other would be, I think, showcasing student work as opposed to you guiding the instruction. And that's really important because they see the students struggling through that, and you're walking through them by asking questions. And I think taking right and wrong out of your vocabulary is another aspect of it, in that you're really just asking clarifying questions. Can you tell me how you understood that? Can you prove that? Can you count those again? So it's a lot of different strategies, and where you're not really quantifying or validating right and wrong, but instead trying to understand the thinking. And that's what we're valuing, and we're valuing thought.
Got it.
And it's almost like one of my math coaches, the writer's workshop. It's just get all your ideas on the paper, and then we'll go ahead and edit. And it's the same thing with math. We get all our ideas, and then we edit.
Got it. Wow, really great. So we got another question around from Timothy. So he asks, if I assign the 6 LearnStorm growth mindset activities right now, can my students earn the badge now, or do they have to wait until LearnStorm starts in a couple weeks? And Mia, I think this might be in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's a great question, and You can assign them and save those assignments as drafts currently, and so then you can go back once LearnStorm kicks off and actually make those assignments live for your students, but they won't be able to complete the assignment in full and earn the badge until after LearnStorm kicks off. And so that'll be after September 12th. And at that point, when students complete the growth mindset activities as they are assigned, not only will they get the limited edition badge for completing the activity, but that completion will also count towards class progress in LearnStorm. So right now they're kind of for review and for reference, and then starting September 12th is when they'll count towards progress.
Got it. And we have a lot of people asking, is LearnStorm just for the US, and can we access it outside of the US even if we're not part of the challenge? So I'm happy to field that one. And so the growth mindset activities, and so what we're talking about today, all the 6 activities, the teacher resources, you can actually access all of those from anywhere in the world. And so go to learnstorm2017.org, go to the resources page, and you'll find a link to those activities. They are only in English, so that is a quick caveat. But then in terms of the kind of what Mia just mentioned and what I mentioned earlier about the milestone tracker and some of the things, the colorful things that you might see within khanacademy.org, that at the moment is only US based, and so US 50 states. We went from year 1, we were just in 1 city, year 2, we were in 4 places, this year we're in 50, and so if we continue growing at that rate, we should get to a lot of other countries soon, and that is something that we are thinking about. But for now, the in-product experience, just US only, but the growth mindset activities that we're going over today, accessible to anyone through learnstorm2017.org. We got another question. Good one. Yvette asks, if another teacher is also doing LearnStorm and we share the same students, will the assignments overlap? Also, how many days a week and amount of time should students be on the program? So almost a 2-parter. Mia, do you want to take the assignments part, and then can you tackle the how much time?
Yeah. So for the assignments piece, say you have a student that is in your math class, but they're also participating in LearnStorm in their English class or a science class. They can be participating in LearnStorm in both of those classes, and the assignments made in the math class will count towards that math class's progress. English assignments will count towards the English class's progress, and science toward the science class's project. So in that scenario, you can imagine that the assignments being made by the teacher are unique to that subject, but the growth mindset activities could be assigned by multiple of those teachers. And so in that scenario, it will depend on which class that assignment is coming from, and it will count towards that class's progress.
Got it.
Yeah.
And if for questions like what counts, what doesn't, if you go to the LearnStorm website and click on rules, that's where we have a lot of FAQs covering this sort of material.
Yeah.
And then to say, how much time should students expect to spend on this?
On the growth mindset?
I think it's growth mindset, or on LearnStorm in general.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much you want those goodies. I try to have my students practice, and I use Khan Academy a lot for that practice on math problems, and grammar I'm using more now. I try to get them 20 to 25 minutes on. Hopefully 3 times a week, which is pretty good. That's I think what's worked best. I think you have to gauge it. You do want to make it consistent, part of your curriculum, because if not, it's going to be challenging for kids to kind of follow along what they're trying to do in Khan Academy and what you're trying to do on the growth mindset. I would really urge teachers to really do the writing aspects of it, the reflection piece, and maybe those could be your quick writes. That is where a lot of good discussion and sharing can come through, and a lot more learning through growth mindset by that reflection piece. And that's part of those activities are kind of built in with some of them is the writing piece.
Yeah. Got it. I'll just follow up there on 2 points, which is that the idea that you can do it flexibly depending on your classroom environment and the access that you have to technology. So even if you want the goodies that are part of the LearnStorm prizes, we've designed it to stretch over the course of 6 weeks, and there are 6 levels total. it's possible to progress through those levels even if you only have like 30 minutes a week and you don't have 30 minutes 3 times a week. So we'd encourage you to take a look through and maybe do a test run for week 1 or week 2, and then you should have plenty of time to get to that 6th level over the course of the challenge. And then for the reflection pieces, I think we encourage you to discuss those with your students. And as part of the teacher lesson plans, we have a series of discussion questions that you can run through with your class, and we have sample responses to tough questions that you might sometimes get from students along the way.
Got it. And I think that segues nicely into our another question, which is around, what if one of our teachers isn't allowed to use computers in the classroom and is wondering, is there a way to do these growth mindset activities with just paper, pencil, kind of the old-fashioned way? What advice do we have there?
Yeah, so it is possible. You will have access to the activities yourself in advance, and what I would point you toward are the Growth Mindset teacher resources, which have the supplementary slideshows. And so you can project that slideshow in class and have students follow along with pencil and paper to write their reflections or draw their reflections. And then in order to earn the badges, they would need to actually submit those reflections and complete the assigned activity on Khan Academy. But that doesn't necessarily need to happen during class time. You could assign it, as we said before, as homework that could be completed either after school but still on school property, or at home, or at a library or after school program, so that they can still get that badge and also contribute towards their class progress in LearnStorm. So very possible.
Got it. We got another question around badges. So what types of badges will be awarded during LearnStorm? Will it just be for the weekly activities, or will there be more? So to rephrase, what are the goodies?
Yeah. Do you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
So in terms of the goodies, you will get individual growth mindset badges for each activity that a student completes. And so 6 activities, 6 badges. Then on the classroom level, so if a student is participating as a part of a LearnStorm classroom, for levels 1 through 5, you'll get a classroom badge for each level that you complete, and that classroom badge will go to every student in the classroom. It'll also come with energy points, and these are sort of limited edition exclusive badges that are only available with LearnStorm, so they're not your traditional meteorite or moon badges. Not that those are, nothing wrong with those badges, but so those are for levels 1 through 5, and then for level 6 is where if you get to level 6 with your class and you have at least 10 students, you'll actually be able to receive a box of LearnStorm school supplies. So we have these really snazzy pencils, stickers that you can give out to your students, and a longer list of school supplies that you'll have to, earn the box, and then you can be a little surprised to see what you have there. And then finally, if your school gets more involved and you have at least 3 teachers that reach that level 6 that I mentioned, you actually qualify for the school grand prize, which comes with national recognition, some donors choose funding, and we have a few tiers of those prizes. And for now, focus on levels 1 through 6, and then during the challenge, we'll be releasing a lot more information about the grand prize and how you can get your school more involved and get every teacher in your grade or every teacher in your school excited for that. Let's see what else we have. Let's see. Is LearnStorm, one of our teachers asks, is LearnStorm only for teachers? Can students use LearnStorm by themselves without a teacher?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is that the prize components of LearnStorm, like the box of school supplies and like the grand prize opportunity, are limited to the classroom experience of LearnStorm, so that's for students that are participating with a teacher in their classroom. However, students that are not participating with a teacher, for whatever reason, if your school or class or teacher is not interested in participating, starting on September 12th, all you need is your Khan Academy account, and you will be prompted actually to complete the LearnStorm growth mindset activities if you're a student here in the US. And by completing those growth mindset activities, as we've mentioned before, you will get the badge that's associated with that activity. And so those are 6 limited edition LearnStorm badges that students participating outside of their class can also get. And it's a similar experience in that you're learning about the growth mindset and you're applying that as you also practice on Khan Academy. And so simply by practicing skills that are relevant to your classes, whether that's math or grammar or chemistry or biology, and completing these growth mindset activities, you'll have access to the same digital prizes.
Got it. We've got, I think we're running a little low on time, but we'll do one more. So one of our teachers says, I teach first grade and many of my students say, I can't. And we got a question of, how can I simplify the growth mindset so that they understand that they can? I think you touched on this a little bit with the metaphors, but it's like any final thoughts on simplifying and making it
definitely
accessible?
Stumped me earlier. But now that I think about effective filter, right? Definitely the video, I think, in Module 1, and where they showcase this little baby learning to walk. And I think it's about that, I think, because especially for first grade or kindergartner, kindergartner students, making them, well, how many of you knew your letters before? Like, did you always speak? Those are things that we learned over time, and I think it's making that visual. And so I use that video to make it very clear that our brain is always growing. The other video or picture of it is the neurons, and how, when you're born, you have this many neurons, and then when you're 6 years old, you have this many neurons. And I think talking about how the brain grows, you can talk to, so who has a bigger brain, a baby that was just born or you that are now 7 years old? And I think that's where you can make it clear that, my brain clearly grew regardless of what I did, whether I went to school or not, because we're human and we're growing. And so I think those are the things that I would do to kind of start to have them buy in. And then the language frames and you using and you modeling. I think that's really key. And that's why I go back to coaching. Like, I'm going to model this for you. Repeat after me. Say it with me. And I think just having those kids, those few kids, and I also tell them, you're all like popcorn. Some of you are going to finish early, and so you're going to pop before everyone else. But by the end, hopefully everyone popped. And so I tell them that you might get one or two kids that's really like, I got it, right? It's like, cool. Oh, you don't know it? You don't know it yet. And they're going to help you. And then they're going to start to shift the community, and you're going to shift your classroom towards that growth mindset by the end of the year. It's going to take time, and it takes perseverance, a lot of humor, and a lot of elegance for you to convince these group of humans to think in this manner. So I think that those are the things that you can do for the younger ages. Start with a few kids, and then they start to model it too, and then it goes from there like popcorn.
Yeah, and I'll just say that the different pieces and learning strategies associated with the growth mindset work for all levels of learners. So if you're a student that is currently struggling with something or struggling to learn something new, there's a lot of kind of obvious ways that the growth mindset plugs into that. So making a plan for overcoming obstacles, learning how to transform mistakes into opportunities. Those are kind of clear applications of the growth mindset. But then if you're a student that's right on track and kind of learning, and one of the popcorns that pops right when it should, or even a little early, then learning how to supercharge your growth even when you aren't maybe currently struggling with something by setting a goal. So the growth mindset activities are appropriate in that case. And then I think for students that are more advanced, and this can be the use case where it's like, well, maybe they don't need to worry about the growth mindset right now. Like they're not struggling currently, but I think it's essential to deliver the growth mindset for those students as well, because we all know that you're going to encounter that obstacle at some point. It might not be in the same subject as your peer or at the same time with the same skill or concept, but it will happen, whether it's in third grade or when you transition over from 8th grade into high school, or for some, it happens as late as that first college math or science class that they have. And we know that can really rock a student's confidence if it does come that late. So delivering this growth mindset intervention with the learning strategies, no matter where you're at in your learning journey, it will be valuable to you currently and then in your learning career in the future.
Awesome. I think that's a great question to end on. We are running a bit low on time, and so I'll just wrap things up by first saying a huge thank you to Mia and Asai for joining us today, sharing their experience, their expertise. I certainly learned something today, and I hope that all of you all watching also found a nugget or two that you found valuable that you might take away this back to school. And so huge thank you both to you both for joining us today. Yeah. To wrap things up, I just want to remind everyone that LearnStorm sign up is open right now, and so between now and September 12th, when the challenge starts, is prime time to sign up, get your classroom ready, review these growth mindset activities, print out some lesson plans, prepare your classroom. It's a really exciting time, and so just encourage you to head to learnstorm2017.org, click Teachers Start Here, and you'll be guided all the way through the sign up process. Also on September 12th, we will have a kickoff live stream, so come back then. We'll be on YouTube again, and we'll actually have Sal Khan joining us then to help us kick things off with a bang. And so with that, I thank you all for joining us and wish all of you the best of luck as you start this new school year with your students.